So this is what it's all about. This country here is as pristine as you would get anywhere in Australia. It has changed little. In fact, it hasn't changed at all since the first human habitation, perhaps 100,000 years ago. People, men, women, have walked through this country, ridden horses, and today drive four-wheel drives, cars, trucks, buses, all come through this country. And still, it's pretty much the same. And look at it, it's bloody magnificent. Yet out there, just beyond those hills, is what's known as the containment line. And beyond that is Parkinsonia, these invasive weeds. Over in that direction is prickly acacia. These are marching forward. They're going to be marching down these wonderful river systems of outback Australia and devastating communities if they're not controlled. Red soil where they grow, but they're
using another army over in this side to try and combine forces to prevent this spread again over down. We work together with the South Australians. We line our forces up down here and really stop these little black mongrels getting down the channels down into there.
Yeah, the channel this way down the river and the waterway.
There's just not enough people to contain them.
So they're down there already.
They're free reign. They'll play over. And it's partnerships all over the area with all the projects that we're running. We've got people everywhere working against mainly the prickle bushes and the pigs in places, but mainly the prickle bushes. We've got them all over the place, so it's a multi-front battle here that we're fighting against these prickle trees. It's a war on many fronts.
So control this side, and eradication this side. So make no mistake, this is war. It's here that the war is joined, here in outback Queensland in the Lake Eyre Basin, where we have weeds, woody weeds like this prickly acacia. We have Parkinsonia, weeds that were brought into this country for shade, for fodder and for ornamental reasons in gardens. They've been brought into the country as shade trees, as fodder plants, as ornamentals. And today they're costing we Australians $4 billion a year in their control.
Out on the Mitchell Grass Downs, it was very hard to get trees to grow. So these were brought in because they would grow on the downs and because they provided shade. Unfortunately, they were far too successful. And what happens now, they form a forest across the Mitchell Grass Downs and eventually all the grass dies out. And then you have a canopy that's too high for the stock to reach, and in drought times the leaves drop anyhow, and underneath you've got no grass. So basically you destroy the environment.
These escaped shade and fodder trees have taken over vast tracts of outback Australia.
My industry, the pastoral industry, in conjunction with the precursor to what's now DPI, brought it in as an introduced species in the hope that it would be something that would provide shade and fodder on the Mitchell Grass Downs. Certainly did that for a little while, but now it's just out of control and causing us an absolute fortune in control and eradication.
Small industries have grown up around feral plant and animal populations. One of the biggest threats in outback Australia is the widespread distribution of feral pigs. These animals destroy land with their diggings. They have been known to kill and eat lambs and ailing livestock, but the biggest threat is in animal health. Should diseases like foot and mouth ever break out in northern Australia, the large population of pigs in vast uncontrolled lands have created a nationwide vector for exotic diseases almost impossible to control. Feral pig harvesting goes part way to controlling numbers and drives an export business with wild harvested pig meat, finding an export market in countries like Germany. pigs and weeds. They hitch a ride following annual rains in high rainfall areas of northern Queensland and with the floods that run down the outback river systems to the desert regions of South Australia. Longreach-based regional group, Desert Channels Queensland, is setting up a battlefront in an attempt to control, at least, woody weeds.
The containment line is a way of setting ourselves a goal and an achievement, and that line is reviewed every 5 years by delegates from right around the country who sit on this management group, and basically to give ourselves, in regards to national planning and those likes of contribute to national plans, regional plans, our local plans, that sort of stuff. So it basically gives you a goal to work towards and something to push back towards. Well, currently we have a project funded through the Blueprint for the Bush through the state government that's specifically for Parkinsonia control outside the containment line. So on the southern side of the containment line, classed in the eradication zone. So in that eradication zone, we put a project forward to say we've got 3 major infestations outside the containment line at the moment, and basically our achievement in the 3 years of this project is to push those and put a buffer zone in the bottom of the state, in the bottom of our region, to stop that southerly spread.
While Desert Channels Queensland keeps a view on the wider front of the battle, the day-to-day, tree-to-tree control falls to individual landholders. Desert Channels Queensland has helped Jim Nunn of Sunnyside, southwest of Longreach, control an outbreak of Parkinsonia on his family property.
You can see all these dead sticks, that's a part of the trees we've pushed up. As you can see, there's not even one seedling here. I got them all cleaned up. Nothing came back after them sheep got in here. Well, this dam here was covered with Parkinsonia. You couldn't even ride a bike or couldn't ride a horse into it. And if anything got in it, you'd have to get on foot to get them out. And then the Desert Channel fellas wanted me to get rid of it. So we got a loader in and pushed it up. And now there's nothing here at all. Now we've got them cleaned right up. In the summertime we got a few storms and about 1 million seedlings come up. But as you see, we fenced this dam in. And the plan is, when it rains, we fill it up with sheep for 3 or 4 weeks or whenever, and they eat all them seedlings off. I'm hoping that works. It has worked so far. As you can see, there's nothing. So if we can keep doing that every time we get a rain, it worked last time. There's not even one seedling left. But you got to lock the sheep up here for a couple of weeks at least. I put about 300 in here, and they just eat them off like nothing. So I think I got it beat. I didn't want to spray it because, see, we pump this water up to the house and we bath in it, and I'm a bit against chemicals, especially bathing in it, so I didn't want to spray it. So that's why we pushed it. And just a little bit safer, I think. You know, you bath your kids in chemicals, what happens later on?
Desert Channels Queensland is assisting the control of weeds and feral animals on a wide front. These efforts in Queensland are the nub, the central cog in any successful national strategy.
It has to be tidied up from an environment economic viewpoint because of the country that it actually degrades. I think is the fashionable word these days. But from the other coin, or the other side of the coin, it's the fact that we are looking after country that we are responsible for, and we've got to hand it on further down the track. We can't continue to sit on our arse and let the whole job just wander off willy-nilly. It has to be coordinated. It has to be encouraged, because a lot of the weeds were dumped on us, or encouraged to be grown by agency people. So it's only fair that governments assist, but it is unfair for someone that's put their heart and soul into cleaning their weed problem up to have someone further up the creek do nothing. There is legislative powers or whatever to enforce. Encouragement's much better. Local government haven't got the capacity or the courage to do it. I think it's up to the primary production people themselves to do the job. We're offering assistance where possible in a planned attack on it, I suppose you'd call it, so that we're actually getting somewhere.
Winton is your classic outback town. It's here a butcher is taking a unique approach to helping control one particular feral animal. Feral animals. You can shoot them, you can poison them, you can trap them. But one of the more enjoyable ways of getting rid of feral animals is to eat them. Check this out.
We found we had a market for camel with the tourists, just as something different.
Yeah.
And then it just snowballed from there.
So there is a demand for it locally?
Oh yeah, demand for it both locally and through tourists.
And tourism, yeah. And what does it eat like?
A bit like a cross between veal and pork.
Oh really?
But very, very tender, very white meat, very good.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess eating these things is one way to get rid of them.
Well, it is one way to get rid of them, but all ours come from properties that use them for controlling the prickly bushes.
Oh yeah.
So, but they're all not domesticated, so they're quite good.
Heading south of Winton with the DCQ crew, the country is showing the benefit of winter rains. Native wildflowers turn the landscape into a garden. But garden escapees now make up some of the most virulent, noxious weeds in the outback.
Cactus had been thrown out years ago in the garden. Like it was just in the garden before we came here. It was disposed of and didn't do much for a while, but all of a sudden just took off and flourished. And it's just gone everywhere, and we were a bit slack in the fact that we didn't do much with it. It's come to a stage where it's nearly uncontrollable. That's the trouble. Well, as you can see, this is a good infestation. It's as thick as here as anywhere, but you can see where we sprayed last year in a section over there, and there's some healthy stuff here we haven't touched. And it's just very hard to kill. You have every one of these segments has to have spray on it. You just can't hit it from one side or whatever. You have to surround it and make sure everything's wet. But this actually started over near the rubbish pit, back over towards the house over there, and it's spread around the edge of the hill. But anything on top we've sprayed coming back. So it's basically a rock face around here that causing a lot of drama. And we hope to hit this again, this year. It's a cost that hurts a bit. Like every load we do a spray by ourselves. We're doing 60 litres of diesel with a litre of chemical. The chemical's worth about $500 a drum. Yeah, we've made a fairly good effort last year, and we'll do the same thing here again. We put out six 20 litres of gall on in about 4 days with that spray rig that the Desert Channels has got, and it's certainly made it quicker and effective. But it's just a matter of getting in amongst it all, in the rocks. That's the big thing. I wouldn't mind a napalm bomb or something, actually, to be honest, but I don't think we'll get away with that. You'd think some plants you'd throw them out and they probably won't affect anything, and this one certainly has. And it was an innocent thing to start with that someone's done, but yeah, it's caused. And we weren't vigilant enough to start with, but you sort of weren't aware of it till it becomes too much of a problem. And it's, I suppose most weeds are like that. A weed's a thing out of place, isn't it?
Raising awareness of the threat of weeds is part of the ongoing work of Desert Channels Queensland.
Trying to get everybody to control weeds is really a challenge. Like, some weeds aren't really affecting people, especially in this southernmost where they don't have a lot of weeds at the moment. There can be some complacency of, it'll be right sort of stuff, but I guess that's the key part of the role of Desert Channels, and especially myself, is to get out to these people, get in their ear, show them our maps, show them the containment line, and explain the whole national strategy, not just from my voice, but put it forward from a national point of view, and basically empower these guys, whether it's by funding assistance or technical advice on how to control this stuff the easiest, the most cost-effective way, and also let them know that, hey, you might only have a little bit at the moment, but here's what it can look like. Here's how it's going to affect your production of your business in the future if we don't do anything with it now, and just sort of keep the encouragement going and let everybody know. Just shout it out, I suppose.
Bellyache bush is yet another weed turning thousands of acres of good grazing land into choked, worthless monocultures. An imported native of tropical America, this is yet another plant that has escaped from Queensland gardens. Besides choking grazing lands, it can be fatally poisonous to many grazing animals.
It's an explosive seed. It can throw it up to 12 metres, and one plant can bear anywhere up to, 500 to 600 seeds. So you're looking at a infestation like this, at millions, literally. Probably hundreds of millions. Other than that, not too much known about it. All the information I've got from it, I've learnt in the last 12 months from speaking to Desert Channels, Brett Carlson or Cameron at Desert Channels, or one of the scientists at Charters Towers Tropical Research Centre. And it's not something that we want to get into our major waterways in central western districts, because, as I say, once it's in there, it is controllable and you can get rid of it, but it's just going to take time and money to do that sort of thing.
Yeah, this infestation of bellyache bush up here at Bromville is a prime example of how a plant that's with this invasive potential as this stuff can get away on you. The likes of John spending hours and hours up here to do this plant, like basically this plant has made this paddock unusable for him for grazing stock, so it's worth nothing to him in this state, and it's costing him a hell of a lot of money to get in and control this stuff, to try and reverse the effects it's had and get some pasture growing back in here, get his spin effects and that happening through this creek line again. So it's as you've seen by the footage, there's a hell of a lot of this plant here, and a lot of years work. There's a lot of seed viability still on the ground, so the likes of, there's many years of work to go here, and basically we need to give these guys some assistance in regards to, this is sort of an infestation that's beyond, I would class beyond someone's personal capabilities to control.
The help with funding, the hire of the spray unit, and the information that I've gathered off them has just been invaluable. I'm part of the Upper Thompson Land Care group up here, and if we can educate 1 to 10 different people about it, well, those 10 people might take it away and educate another 10 people. It just builds up, so that hopefully in the next couple of years, if anything does break out, or if someone says, oh, there's a strange bush, I better get onto Desert Channels, ask them what it's all about. They might be able to supply them with a weed deck, or they might come out, have a look at it.
Bellyache bush to feral dogs and dingoes. Today described under the generic term wild dogs. Man's best friend turned sheep farmer's arch enemy.
Okay, so in the old days, there were a lot of sheep in this part of the world, and it was prior to 1080. So what they did was have full-time doggers on every property with the job of maintaining or controlling the dingo numbers. So what would happen, you'd work out the beat, you would then go and find a suitable spot along that beat to set your trap, and that would be somewhere where they've stepped over a log or walk between 2 bushes, somewhere that they're constricted down. So you go to that spot, you dig a hole in the ground several inches deep and about the size of this trap, just so it'll neatly fit into it. So you dig your hole, then you have to set your trap with great care, because you can lose a finger. So you'd set your trap like that, you'd set it neatly down into the hole you've dug, you would cover it with a bit of newspaper, put dirt around, gently sprinkle it all over it so it's invisible, get a soft branch, if you like, a green branch, and smooth it all out, and when it's properly done, it's invisible. You've got a dingo coming through along a speed, gets attracted, it'll walk in, and it will get caught. Most current knowledge and understanding we have of the history of dingoes in Australia is that they came into the country with early seafarers roughly 4,000 years ago from Southeast Asia. They're a primitive form of wolf, and they came into the mainland continent with early seafarers who actually carried them for a number of reasons, as guard dogs when they were pulled up in some areas, but the main reason was as a source of fresh food for their long sea voyages. Europeans came to Australia, and with them they brought their sheep and their cattle. The big issue was with sheep. Dingoes and sheep do not get along. Dingoes love a feed of mutton, very regular feed of mutton. So what then happened was that there was a mass campaign, shooting, trapping, bounties on dingo scalps, and it's been, ever since the coming together of dingoes and sheep, it's been an ongoing battle with graziers and pastoralists trying to control or eradicate dingoes from sheep country. In the old days it was all trapping, shooting and poisoning with strychnine and other whatever available poisons they were, but in the more modern era the coming of 1080 was a major breakthrough in the control of dingoes in sheep country. 1080 is a very selective poison that's a naturally occurring compound in quite a number of Australian plants, so it's a lot of Australian native fauna are quite immune to it. Where you've got sheep country with dingoes in that country, there are huge economic and physical costs to those growers because they do go out and a single dog can bite and ultimately kill up to 30 or 40 sheep a night if it's in the mood. These days, sheep have gone out of quite large areas of the rangelands in Australia. And in my opinion, and also in the opinion of quite a few researchers that have been looking at the issue, low numbers of dingoes in cattle country are a very good management tool. They return some of the balance to the control of both kangaroo numbers, foxes, cats, pigs, and unless they build up into large numbers, they have very little impact on calving numbers. So they are doing a major service in the right numbers and the right population structures where you've got a dog and a bitch controlling their own range. They are actually a very important tool in managing the Australian rangelands.
Time to head home, back to the homestead, and get the barbecue going. It's time to check out just how edible feral animals can be. This time, our sample of camel. We've just chucked some schnitzels that Brian, the butcher from Winton, gave us this morning. They're on the barbie, and we're just lacing them with some onions here just to take any strange edges off, you know, that might come in with a bit of ferality. So there we have it. Healthy, probably make a few people out in the desert wealthy, and wise, because we're getting rid of our ferals. It's, well, certainly looks good enough to eat. And for the future, we're just keeping these feral animals under control the best way I know how. Weeds and feral animals. The challenge in beating this menace is to get land managers to pull together.
That's an ongoing problem and an ongoing challenge, I guess, for us to get everybody working together. Groups are really firing up lately. There is a big push towards weed control in this area. People have seen how bad it can get up the top. They've been up the top and seen what it's like, and they don't want that. So there's certain landholders around, especially around this area, that are really getting groups together and using that personal motivation, I suppose, to get people to work and combine resources, because labour is hard to get out here.
I've had people come to me after meetings literally in tears saying, I'm sick to death of cleaning my country and being reinfested every year. There are always going to be people that do not do their share. But as an industry, we're going to have to work our way through that, and I think Desert Channels is probably the best avenue at the moment by dispersing government money to encourage the destruction of all this sort of stuff. After South Australia's experience with the Murray, I don't think they want to see anything else either taken away from them or given to them that they don't want. And it's part and parcel of Queensland's operation to clean up, to do the job, because there is just too much country getting taken over and becoming unworkable, unmanageable, unviable, and what's the buzzword these days? The ecosystem and all that's being busted apart by these, what's the term, invaders.
Throughout the Lake Eyre Basin, in Queensland, South Australia and the Northern Territory, groups like Desert Channels Queensland, government departments are joining together, along with landholders and workers in the field, communities, local councils, and fighting against this menace that is creeping slowly down the rivers and invading this region. We have to stop this problem, we have to stop these invaders, and only by working together can we do that.
The success of a group like Desert Channels depends on people, the community, which is a bullshit word in fact. Everyone that makes up this region has got something to gain from working with desert channels, be they townies or rural people or whatever. And unless we're all unified or trusting the desert channels or whatever, we're not going to get anywhere. It's got to be a combined approach to this problem.
So what can we do, you and I, to at least help slow down this invasion of woody weeds and feral animals? Well, for a start, you can become a weed spotter and join in a nationwide effort to identify the weeds and therefore control their invasion as they move through the region. And another good way is to get this little number, a little book, so you can actually identify things. Then you can let people know, whether it's the DPI, DNR or Desert Channels Queensland, and by sharing that knowledge, you help in the fight. You become alert to the problems and aware of what they can do. That's important. And that way, by working together, we can win this war.